Hello my quilting friends! Leah Day here with a new video for the Machine Quilting Block Party. We're ready to piece our very first block of the year, our Blooming 9 patch. And we're going to piece this in a series of 3 units. We're going to piece the vase, then the stem, and then the flower. So let's get started first learning how to piece our vase together. So here are the pieces for our vase. As you can see, I have already gone ahead and made my half square triangles for this unit. So to piece it, we're just going to flip over the half square triangles and we're going to piece it on either side of that center rectangle. And whenever it comes to piecing, I always flip over my unit and I place my pin perpendicular with the seam I'm going to stitch. That's just my guide for myself, because when I get to the machine, I'm not sitting there going, what gets pieced to what? You know, sometimes it can get really confusing. You can flip yourself around. So whatever you do, make sure that you develop some method of pinning so that when you get to the machine, you know exactly which seams to stitch. So we have that on both sides. I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch that together. Now we pin this just so that we would know which seam to stitch, which side to stitch on, but we really didn't take a lot of time to line up our fabric, so let's do that now. We want to line up those edges real nicely together, make sure, double check that the fabrics are right sides together. Trust me, that can happen. You can get to your machine and everything seems all wonky and off. Another thing that I like to do when I'm working with the half square triangle is I like to make sure that the seams, those extra bulky seams right there, are going to feed into the machine first. So I'm going to flip it around and just take a second here to make sure that these edges are in nice alignment, just double checking that everything's nicely lined up. And now I'll start stitching them together. So just like our piecing tip video, we have stitched through a scrap charger, and I have lowered my stitch length down to 1.5 millimeters. So that way I'm stitching and locking these together real nice and secure. Piece this on down. And then I just grab another scrap. This is just a leftover piece from the block, fold it in half and buzz through it. And that way we can clip it off and flip it over and piece the opposite side. So opposite side works the same way. Flip it around so that way you can piece through those seam allowances first. And then, of course, remember, just to take a little minute here, get everything nicely lined up so that way those edges are going to be perfectly lined up and they're going to have a nice accurate 1/4 inch seam. At this point you can really see the vase coming together, and the last step is to attach these 2 fabric D rectangles to both sides. Just flip those over, stitch them on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and your vase unit will be complete. So next is our stem unit, and this one's a little tricky because there's a few more pieces involved. You can see we have these little half square triangles. They're real tiny little half square triangles here that form the leaves. We've got a little skinny strip, and then these pieces are unique. They are almost squares but not quite, and so you want to make sure that you've lined them up so that the taller side is going vertical, so they're a little bit skinnier this way. So once you have it all laid out just like this, we're going to first piece the half square triangles together. So flip that up, and again remember, you've got to have a method for pinning so you know what seam to stitch when you get to your machine. If I was to take this to the machine, I could think any number of these edges would be the one I'm supposed to stitch, and I'd end up with some very weird looking leaves. So watch out for that. Make sure to flip them over, place your pin, take it in the machine. We're going to stitch these together just like we did with the vase. Because these are 2 half square triangles, we've got seam allowances to the top and the bottom. Just make sure to line those up nicely, make sure the edges are right stacked on top of each other, and stitch on down. So here are those leaves we just pieced, and this stem area is definitely coming together. And now this is a simple piecing process. You just flip over the leaves and piece them to the center stem. Once you do that and piece that together as one unit in the center, then you piece these rectangles to both sides. And here's what your stem unit's going to look like when it's finished. So the next step is to piece our Blooming 9 patch flower, and this is honestly my favorite part of this block. We're using some half square triangles here with some squares of fabric B and fabric C, and so to piece this we're going to work in rows. So you'll just piece the half square triangles with this fabric B square, then these 3 squares together, and then this side as well. So just piece these together in rows, and then I'm going to show you how to piece these seams together and match them really nicely. So I took a minute to piece these units together, and now I'm going to flip over the top row, over the middle row, and I'm going to take a minute to line up these seams really accurately and just stack them right on top of one another and pinch real hard with my index finger and middle finger, or sorry, index finger and thumb, and then pull back to make sure those seams are perfectly in line, and then I pin right above that seam line. I do the same thing on the other side. And one thing I think I should note is that after piecing any of these units together, I am stopping and pressing these seam allowances. I finger press and then press with a hot iron. And I've done this with all of the units that we've done so far. So make sure to be taking that time to do that extra step. Really will affect how seams come together like this. So with this pin nicely, let's take it to the machine and stitch through it. So I'm just lining this up and smoothing out the fabric, making sure those edges are in nice alignment. I slip it under my foot so the very next stitch is right onto those pieces. And I'm going to stitch down to 1 stitch before that pin. Before I reach it, I'm going to make sure that those seam allowances haven't flipped up and flipped close. That really drives me crazy. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so stitch right up to the pin and take it out. And then keep on stitching. Notice that sometimes I'm putting a little bit of tension or pressure on the fabric. If I notice that these edges are not coming in alignment, I'll use my index finger, kind of tug it down a little bit and grip it real hard as I stitch on down. And stitch right up to that pin and remove it, and then down to the edge. So here I want to show you that finger pressing. I open up that seam with my fingertips and drag my nail across it. That's flattening it out and making sure that I am opening that seam as much as I can, and then I hit it with a hot, dry iron. Now when I flip it over and press from the right side, I want to use some sort of pressing cloth, especially over these seams, so that way it doesn't kind of slightly burn the surface of the fabric and go shiny. I just use a little extra scrap of fabric, that's fine. Silk organza is real nice to use as a pressing cloth because you can see through it. And you can see those beautiful matching seams. They came out just right. So the last step to the flower unit is just to repeat what we've just done. You flip up this bottom unit, pin it in place, and stitch through it carefully. So here is our blooming 9-patch block, and it's really coming together. After piecing all of your units, make sure to put a ruler on top of them and just double check that they've come out the right size according to the pattern. The next step is to piece your flower unit and your stem unit together. And just a quick note, these seam lines within the stem are not going to match up with the seam lines in the flower. They're going to be a 1/4 inch away. So don't try and pin those and make a match. That's not going to work. So you're going to piece those two together, and then this top little rectangle of background fabric, you're going to piece that to the top, and then you'll piece these 2 rectangles to both sides, and that will connect together your entire top flower section. And then all you have to do is piece this vase unit to the bottom. So once you have that complete, then attach your borders to the top and bottom and both sides, and here's what your blooming 9-patch block is going to look like when it's complete. I really think that this came out beautifully, and I can't wait to teach you how to machine quilt it next. So that's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed learning how to piece this blooming 9-patch block. You can find the pattern for this block at leahday.com/block party. I really hope that you'll join in the fun. This is a year-long quilt-along, and I hope you'll join in as we learn how to piece and quilt each block this year. If you have any questions about this process, definitely ask in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, let's go quilt.